Well, for more on this, we're joined by SAFTU NEC member Vusi Ntshangase. Mr. Ntshangase, good evening to you, and thank you for your time tonight. What's happening in SAFTU? Things seem to be all over the place.
Good evening, Kathy, and a good evening to your viewers at home. Well, we can't deny the fact that SAFTU as a federation is going through some difficult times, is going through uncharted waters, a period one would not have wished to experience in his lifetime, in that a federation as young as SAFTU will find itself in a situation where it has to take drastic decisions, including the suspension of its leadership in the manner in which it has done. But it was clear that the writing was on the wall, that there was no shortcut, there was no way the NEC would look at this thing differently, because the act of the four national office bearers fundamentally undermined the constitution of the federation, which is our supreme law. And it was the understanding of the NEC that anyone, regardless of the position that person holds in the organization, if that person tampers with the constitution of the federation, is tampering with the life of the organization and its going concern. So there was no way the NEC could have avoided the decision it took in the last 3 days, unfortunately.
The difficulty for SAFTU, of course, is that you've been vocal about the state of our country, the state of the ANC, the tripartite alliance, and the role that factions have played in that space in terms of leaving us where we are with a very fractured political space. Given the fact that your own organization seems to be going through the same thing, I mean, it raises questions about, number one, sustainability, given how young as an organization you are, but also, you know, it cannot be a case of much of the same, that while you say you're different, what you actually bring to the table has a lot of similarities.
Well, Kat, I think your question is a bit problematic, because it suggests that the NEC decision is factional. It suggests that the NEC decision resembles the other decisions taken by other organizations. When we have repeated over and over again, trying to justify that the act of the national office bearers in undermining the constitution of the federation in the manner they did, emanating from their national office bearers meeting on the 14th, could not be subjected to any form of sanction other than the maximum sanction prescribed for by the constitution. And I think that you are unfair to the federation itself, Kathy.
Mr. Ntshangase, I think you've misunderstood me. I'm not criticizing your decision in terms of how you are handling the matter within your organization. That's your prerogative. But what I'm saying is that the fact that the problem has emanated in the first place, that you've had to suspend 4 of your senior leaders because of these allegations which you say they've broadly and that they falsely brought against Mr. Vavi, that is the real issue I'm speaking to, because you know, the division within SAFTU seems to be what is driving that.
Well, there are no divisions in SAFTU. The National Executive Committee of SAFTU, which took place from the 24th to the 26th of March, was attended by almost all SAFTU affiliates, those in good standing, including those that were not in good standing. And they attended the meeting throughout the session from the day one till to the end. And we had robust, heated discussions, debates amongst ourselves, which lasted hours and hours. And the debate was based on whether or not the national office bearers had the authority in terms of the constitution to suspend one of their own. Ultimately, the meeting got to a conclusion that office bearers, whom we understand to be the custodian of the Constitution and the defenders of the said Constitution, violated the Constitution deliberately. We say deliberately because immediately after the letter from the President to the General Secretary, more than 14 SAFTU unions, President of SAFTU, calling upon him to retract the letter and take the NEC into confidence to explain what is it that is happening inside the Federation. Unfortunately, the President ignored all those unions. Instead, he decided to go straight to the media and justify his action. So the NEC of SAFTU was left with absolutely no option but to rise in defense of its constitution, mindful of the fact that if we were to allow the constitution of the Federation to be degenerated in the manner in which it was clear it was being degenerated, we would have allowed the Federation to disappear on our hands. So we had to rise and do what we did. And we must say that in as far as the NEC is concerned, we have got no doubt in our mind. We are quite sure that the decision is within the ambit of the Constitution. The National Executive Committee is empowered by its Constitution of SAFTU in terms of clause 3.3.5 to place any of the national office bearers on suspension if the NEC is convinced that there is a reason to do so. Well, of course, there is no argument against the fact that seeks to suggest that how would you do this in the middle of a crisis confronting the working class when it is clear that poverty is on the rise, inequalities is on the rise, unemployment is at a crisis point, and so on and so on. But we were faced with a choice whether we choose to keep the Federation alive or will allow it to disappear. Because it was clear that if the NEC was to allow the act of the 4 national office bearers to stand, we would have as well kissed the Federation goodbye. We had to choose, and there were difficult choices to be made. And the choice made, we believe, is the right choice.
All right, let's leave it there for tonight. Vusi Ntshangase is a SAFTU NEC member.